Welcome to Sumner School Business Immigration Basics. My name is Emily Sumner with Sumner Immigration Law, and today we're starting our video series on the E-visa classification. This video will touch on the E-1 and E-2 visa classifications. The first thing to know about the E-1 and E-2 visa classifications is that there must be a qualifying treaty between the United States and the country from which the foreign national, is coming on the E-visa. There is a list of over 60 countries that the United States has an E-visa treaty with. Most of those treaties cover both the E-1 and the E-2 visa classification, but sometimes the treaty only covers one, either the E-1 or the E-2, so it's important to double check that. The E-1 visa classification is for treaty traders. That means that the foreign national is coming to the United States to conduct substantial trade here in the United States. At least 50% of that trade has to be between the US and the qualifying treaty country. In addition, it's really the volume of trade that is given more weight rather than the value of the trade. The E-2 visa classification is for treaty investors. That means an investor, a foreign national who's coming to the United States to invest in a business and to develop or direct that business. It can also be used for employees of qualifying E-2 companies. It's important to note that these classifications that we're talking about, the E-1, E-2, and we'll talk about E-3 later, are totally different from the EB-5 classification. The EB-5 classification is for an immigrant visa, which means basically a green card. It's a totally different classification, and that's not what we're talking about here. For both the E-1 and the E-2, it's also important to note that at least 50% of the ownership of the company must be owned by nationals of the qualifying E-2 or E-1 company. If the company is owned by individuals, of course, we'll look at the nationality of the individuals that hold the ownership of the company. If the company is owned by another company, we'll look at who owns that particular company, the nationality of those individuals, or if it's publicly traded, we'll look at where that particular company is publicly traded. In our next video, we'll go into more detail on the E-2 visa classification. Until next time, I'm Emily Sumner.